Why is that? What's so romantic in here? I'm very excited to be here. Very happy to not see you yet, but inshallah I'll get to see you soon. So please do ask them to turn the lights on because I'd like to see people sleeping. Okay. So what I'd like to take these few minutes, because Maghrib is coming in about 20 minutes. So I'm going to start us off, give you a little bit of an orientation. We have a long night ahead of us. Inshallah, this is the most recent story night that I've been working on for about 1.5 years now. I've traveled with this program in many parts of the world since the COVID restrictions came down, alhamdulillah. And it's been a very good learning experience for me. There are stories in the Quran, as you know. Thank you. Okay. Oh my God, there's so many of you. Okay. There are stories in the Quran that we've heard since childhood, and we assume that we know what those stories have to give us. And one of the stories that I'm going to share with you tonight is probably one of the most famous stories in the Quran. It's going to be very small parts from the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. Very small parts. And it's going to take us a long time to get through that, but I promise you, inshallah, it'll be something that will make you think about things a little bit differently, inshallah. My first question to you, or my first request from all of you, is to actually remind yourself of something that's important about the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. When Allah told the Prophet alayhi salam the story, in the whole surah was the story, but the beginning was not the story. The beginning was Allah talking to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So before the story begins, Allah talks to the Prophet. And when he talks to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he tells him a few things. 2 of them I will need you to remember. The first thing he says is نَحْنُ نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ أَحْسَنَ الْقَصَصِ. We're going to tell you the most beautiful story. And the most beautiful way of telling the story. This is important because what I like to call this is orientation. Before you start something, the teacher prepares your mind. What are you looking for? So like some of you take a university class and your professor says, this is going to be a very difficult course. Most of you will fail. Right? So he's really clearly a charming personality for a professor. But when he says that on the first day, he's trying to instill anxiety and fear or whatever in your mind. Right? Another professor says this is going to be the easiest course you'll ever take in university. Most of you will get an A. Different mindset, isn't it? So the first thing you hear, what does it do? It creates a mindset. What mindset did Surah Yusuf create when Allah told the Prophet ﷺ, نَحْنُ نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ أَحْسَنَ الْقَصَصِ? Allah is going to tell him, you're going to look for things that are beautiful in this story. Because this is the most what? Beautiful story. It's ahsan. So we're constantly looking for things that are beautiful. There's a search for beauty in Surah Yusuf. This is going to be very hard. Easy to say, you go, oh mashallah, we're going to look for beauty in Surah Yusuf when a child gets kidnapped. And when he gets thrown in the middle of the woods in a hole. And then when somebody takes him out, and instead of caring for that child and saying, where did you come from? Can I take you back to your parents? They probably beat him up and tie him up and hide him in a sack, under a sack of potatoes or sack of rice, so they can take him off somewhere before somebody finds out that they've kidnapped a child. And then they take him to a child slave trade market, which back in the day, I'm pretty sure, was not air conditioned, the kids were not kept in good circumstances. I'm pretty sure they were not kept any different from how animals are kept. You know, because when they sell animals, they have them in a pit, and they're tied up, and they have a slave market for boys, and I don't know if they have clothes or they don't have clothes, you don't know, but they're being kept together, dirty, unfed, whatever, and people are coming and checking their teeth and grabbing their face to see, I'll take this one, I'll take this one. You know, like they're treating animals, and this is what he's going through, a child is going through this. And then the best case scenario is he's going to end up becoming a slave in a new country where he doesn't even know the language because he's from Canaan and he's going to end up in Egypt. Right? So and then things get better because he's going to get accused and go to jail. So what did Allah say? I'm going to tell you the what? The most beautiful. Does any of this sound beautiful? No, so this is going to be a little bit of a struggle, huh? Why would Allah say it's the most? It would be easier to understand if Allah said, "I'm going to tell you the saddest story. I'll tell you one of the most depressing stories. I'll tell you a story of trauma after trauma after trauma." That's not what He said. He said, "I'm going to tell you what? The most beautiful story." And we have to ask the question, that must mean everything that's happening in this surah that clearly is so ugly, it's so ugly, but somehow Allah is going to teach me how to find what? Beauty. That's the first thing I want you to know. The second thing I want you to know is وَإِن كُنْتَ مِن قَبْلِهِ لَمِنَ الْغَافِلِينَ. Before this, the Prophet was told, before this story, you used to be from the ghafilin. You used to be from those who were unaware. The Prophet is being told he was what? Unaware. What does that mean? The Prophet ﷺ is aware of Allah. He's aware of the angel. He's aware of the akhirah. He's aware of the previous prophets. He's aware of previous revelations. He's aware of right and wrong. Actually, he's the most aware human being on earth. Actually. But then Allah tells the Prophet in this story, in the very beginning, before this story, you were what? From among who? Ghafilin. Now let me tell you something about the... I translate ghafilin as unaware, but let me get a little deeper with you. Ardun ghafil. The Arabs used to say, if you're standing in the middle of nowhere, and you're standing in the middle of the woods, and you look around and you don't see a path. You know, if people walk a lot, you can see a little bit of a path. You don't see a path. You don't see any light in the distance. You don't see any smoke coming out. Maybe there's a village. You don't hear any cars. Maybe there's a road on the other side. You don't hear the sound of a river. You hear nothing. You can't tell where you are, and it's surrounded by trees. If you're standing somewhere and you have no clue where you are, that's called Ardun Ghafil. Let me let them finish talking because you guys got really interested. But this is okay. Assalamu alaikum. How's it going? Okay. It's just experiences. Well, what happens is whenever there's a lecture of any kind, this is not just Islamic lecture. Any lecture ever in the universe, anything other than the lecture becomes interesting. Anything. One gentleman came to give a person a bottle of water just now. There was like 200 of you. Is he going to drink it? What's for me? I'm good. Something will become interesting to you that has never been interesting to you in your entire life. You have never cared if somebody gave you a glass of water. And the more serious the subject, the more other things become interesting. I used to teach Arabic, which is a hard subject, right? And the biggest mistake I made in my campus building, in my classroom, behind me were windows. So I'm teaching, behind me there's the 6th floor of a building, behind me there's a window, and behind the window in the distance there's a highway. Okay? I swear by Allah, I used to look at some students and I can tell if there's traffic. Because, listen, if there's no traffic, they do this. And if there's lots of traffic, they go. Anyway, what was I talking about? I forgot. Ghafil. If you're standing in the middle of somewhere and you have no idea where you're standing, you don't recognize the place. That's called being ghafil. Now, the Prophet is being told, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there are things you will learn in this surah that are not anywhere else in the Quran. Even though Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is not ghafil of so much, but there are lessons and wisdom and things in this surah that are not found anywhere else in the entire Quran. And if you don't learn these things, then you may not recognize where you are what? Where you're standing. That tells me that this surah is about developing awareness. So there's 2 words now, beauty and what? Awareness. And that's the introduction Allah gave to Surah Yusuf. That's the introduction He gave to His messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I gotta keep track of time because I'm gonna break at a logical point. Okay, I've only taken 10 minutes so far, so that's good. I'm gonna speak to you for another 15 minutes. We're gonna get this conversation started, and we're gonna do lots more after the salah. So what's gonna happen after the salah is, I know that you are going to want to run away or make new friends and make new enemies. But the thing is that I'm going to give you 5 minutes, and I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to start talking to myself. If you're not here, I will be talking. If you are here, I will be talking. If you're talking to each other, I will still be talking. Okay? I don't do the brothers and sisters, please calm down, please, the program is about to start. We know that doesn't work. You all know it doesn't work. Even after like Salatul Jumu'ah, the worst guy, the worst job on earth is the guy who has to make the announcements after Jumu'ah. He has the worst job. Everybody's like, oh. But the best is the guy, the guy who gets the mic after the Salah. I only have 17,566 announcements, brothers and sisters. On Wednesday there's a potluck. On Thursday there's a this. On Friday there's a this. Don't forget this. Please, please, please. And everybody, why do you think people run from the masjid so fast after Salah? Because they see the guy grabbing the mic for the announcement, like, oh! But then, my favorite is the poor guy sitting in the first row. Because he can't run. Now he's got to listen to all the announcements. So you know what he does? He just stands up and he goes, oh, you want to make announcements? You want to make announcements? Allahu Akbar. Anyway, if you're the announcement guy, I am sorry. So the thing is, now we're going to start the story. And Allah says, إِذْ قَالَ يُوسُفُ لِأَبِيهِ. You were completely unaware, he told the Prophet ﷺ. You used to be completely unaware. When Yusuf ﷺ said to his father, Ya abati, my beloved father. Dad, I love you. My beloved father is not normal English. Have you ever used beloved before? The only person I know that uses beloved is Imam Siraj Wahaj. He's a friend. He says, how you doing, beloved? That's the only one I know. Nobody else uses beloved. I've never used beloved. You haven't used beloved. Your children haven't used it. If your son or daughter came up to you and said, beloved father, you would know something is very wrong. Right? So we use words in English translation that are weird for us, but we still use them in English translation. I'd rather use translation that makes sense to you normally. The point of translation is you should be able to understand what's being said. At-ta' tushir ila al-hubb. Simply speaking, Dad, I love you. Dad, I love you. First things he said to his father is, Dad, I love you. First, Ya abi, Dad. Ya abati, the ta points out love. So the first thing after the Prophet was told that you used to be unaware is he told him that the child came up to his father and he said, Dad, I love you. You guys know that he's going to tell him a dream, right? We're not talking about the dream yet. Every word in the Quran is important. Before the dream, what's the first thing we learned? That a boy came to his dad and said, what? Dad, I love you. Okay? Now here's the thing. If he's a little boy, let's just say nowadays, because you guys are, mashallah, Islamic, so you don't have internet. So, but on the internet, there's this thing called social media. And on social media, sometimes there are videos of small children that go viral. And there's one kind of video that goes viral is small kids using bad language. Millions of views. Some little boy, some little girl, 2, 3 years old. Oh yeah, you're a boop, 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 boop. And it's like millions of views. Now when a small kid learns bad words, where did they get them from? Where did they get them from? Parents or their uncle or some elder, that's where they heard it. And kids copy everything that the elders do, right? That's what they do. My point is, if Yusuf ﷺ said, Dad, I love you, where did he get that from? Where did he get it from? From Dad, from Mom. He got it from the parents, right? In other words, the father said, Son, I love you. Can you bring me some water? Bida, I love you. Can you come pray with me? Son, I love you. It's time to go to bed. Son, I love you. It's cold outside. Close the window. Son, I love you, do this. Son, I love you, do that. Constantly, what's the dad saying? Son, I love you. Son, I love you. And what does the son learn to say? Dad, I love you. Now, let me ask a hard question. Guys, I've asked this question around the world, so you're not the first ones. How many people were raised hearing their dad say that he loves you all the time? Oof. MashaAllah. Is it 3 or 4 of you? 3 or 4 of you. Yeah? Okay. Good. Thank you. The rest of us are not normal. You should be happy. Okay? A teaching in the Quran is that kids are expressing love for the father. Obviously, that can only happen when what happens first? The father expresses love for the kids. When I studied this surah and I asked myself this question, I thought, let me ask myself, did my dad, when I grew up, did he say, I love you? Couldn't remember him ever saying it, really. So I asked my sister. I was like, hey, does Baba ever say I love you to you? She goes, no, that's weird. We don't do that in this family. And that's an answer I get in many families. Whether I went to Kosovo, or I was in Bosnia, or I was in Rome, or I was in Malaysia, or I was in Indonesia, wherever I went in the world and I asked the question, do you hear your dad say I love you? The most common answer is, we just don't do that in our family. That's not our thing. How do you know he loves you? He just loves you. I just know, okay? But just know he doesn't have to say it. He doesn't have to say it. Did the Quran highlight the importance of saying it? In this ayah, did it highlight the importance of saying it? Is anything extra in the Quran? So actually expressing love to my child, and my child learning to express love to me, is a teaching of the Quran. And the more Quran I study, we give all these talks about we have to implement the Quran, we have to bring the Quran into our life. Really? Really? You know what that means then? We got to start saying that. And some of you might actually get excited after today. That's it. We haven't done this in our family yet. But today I will implement the word of Allah when I go home. Dad, how come you don't say you love me? You say this, you go next to your Baba Jan, Abba Jan, Papa, Daddy, whatever you call him. He's like saying, "Ha beta, kaisa tha program? Papa, I love you, ki nahi kehte?" What's your dad gonna do? Like, he's gonna call your mother. Can you just check on him? Something's wrong. This is the part of it that comes from your side of the family. That's what's going to tell your mom. But speaking of expressing love, I want you to know before we break for Salah, I want you to know that there's a number of ways we express love. It's not just by saying I love you. There's a few ways. And different cultures use different ways of expressing love. Just because we don't say we love each other, doesn't mean we don't love each other. There are other ways to express love. Like, for example, in many cultures, we express love by doing something. Like your mom, not your mom, this is the mom of everyone in Vancouver, not here. But moms in Vancouver are weird. They don't say they don't say kind words. They're not nice, but they make breakfast every morning. They could say the meanest, nastiest things, but they'll always they'll tell you, you're so, you know what, you're such a loser, you're so disrespectful, you're such a disappointment, you're this, why can't you be like your sister, why can't you be like your brother? Eat your eggs. And you're hearing this word, and every word that comes out of her mouth sounds like she doesn't like you, she's disappointed in you, she even hates you, but she really wants you to eat those eggs, and those eggs taste so good. The comments taste so bad, and the eggs taste so good at the same time. And when you say, Mom, why do you hate me so much? If I hated you, would I make these eggs? Because in her mind, love doesn't come from words. Love comes from where? From the eggs. Love comes from service. Also, we'll say that some people express love with words, other people express love with what? Service. Service. And you know what? Some people think, since I do service, I don't have to use loving words. It's okay, because I do the service already. Other people say, no, 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 I'm not going to do service, and I'm not going to do words, I'm going to give gifts. I'm going to give you something. And my way of, when I give you something, that means I what? I love you. Now I don't have to use good words, and I don't have to do any service. I just have to give you gifts. So, for example, you know, when a father pays the bills, when a father, you know, pays for the textbooks for school, or, you know, gets to eat clothes for the kids or whatever, now he can still be harsh, he can still be mean, he can still not be helpful, but say, hey, who pays the bills? Who got you those socks? Because in the end, what's the proof that he loves you? That he gives you what? Gifts. You didn't earn them, he gave them to you. So those are gifts. So he says, okay, since I give the gifts, I don't have to give the other two kinds of love. How many kinds of love so far? Expressing love. Words, and what else? Service, and what else? Gifts. And then there's some other people who say, you know what, I don't do any of that stuff, but I'm a good hugger. I'm just gonna give you a hug. I'm just gonna hold your hand. I'm just gonna show you affection. So you might go to your mom and say, Mom, we need to talk. No, but just come here, it's okay. No, we need to talk. No, it's okay. You know? Or a wife comes to the husband and says, we have an issue, we need to talk. Just give me a hug, okay? Just give me, let me squeeze the problem out of you. So what happens is some people show, and by the way, holding a hand, patting the head, you know, hugging. Are these important kinds of love? Yeah, they are. They are. So we got 4 so far? We got 4? But there's the 5th one. And while we keep track of time, this is the one that takes the most time. There's a 5th one. If you don't have that one, and even if you have all 4, they don't mean anything. They get multiplied by 0. The most important one is number 5. And that one is, I'll tell you after Salah. Sorry, goodbye. No, I mean it. Go pray.